Okay. Problems with the phone for a moment there. Another late night Seneca. I didn't get home till 9, so my wind down is late anyway. But a little bit of Seneca before I go to bed. This is letter 40. It's a topic that is both relevant. It's highly, highly relevant and also not that relevant on a personal level. It's very, very relevant because it talks about rhetoric, which is the ancient art of giving speech. By ancient, I mean that's what they called it back then. We still have speeches today, obviously. Um, it's relevant insofar as we need to listen to people who give speeches regularly. That's just a thing that we have to do, especially if you're going to be have any involvement in politics. And secondly, if you are going to be giving speeches yourself. Now, the the primary issue that Seneca has is he seems to want he's not concerned. Well, that's not completely the right way to say it. He wants speech primarily to be concerned with truth, more so than being persuasive. He wants persuasiveness too, but it really needs to be rooted in truth. Now, um, I personally am, what's the word I'm looking for? Pessimistic enough that I think that puts you um, at a disadvantage because I do think that in today's world, especially, truth has very, very little impact on the general populace. But regardless, as an audience, we need to be aware of these, if nothing else. So it talks about a philosopher named Serapio, which sounds like the name of a mobster. Um, his words, you say, tend to be tumbled out at a tremendous pace, pounded and driven along rather than poured out, for they come in a volume no one voice could cope with. I feel like that. I feel like that describes almost any political commentator. They don't actually even have a real point, so they just give out a bunch of. I wouldn't even necessarily call it word salad. It'd be more accurate to call it word vomit, because it's that word salad means that you say nothing like, but you use fancy words in a way, even though you're not actually saying anything, you think you mean something. But what I mean by word vomit is just like they just so much and so quickly that it's overwhelming, and that's kind of the argument by being overwhelming, basically. Um, so then that was quoting Lucilius. He says, "You say that Serpio is this way. I do not approve of this in a philosopher." This is no longer quoting Lucilius. "I do not approve of this in a philosopher whose delivery, like his life, should be well ordered. Nothing can be well regulated if it is done in a breakneck hurry." Now, skipping down a little bit, what is waited for? So he talks about slower speech, slower, methodical, thoughtful speech. What is waiting for does sink in more readily than what goes flying past. One speaks in any event of instruction as being handed on to those being taught, and something that escapes them is hardly being handled on. Handed on, excuse me, not handled. And this, I really like this. Language, moreover, that devotes its attention to truth ought to be plain and unadorned. So you don't need to put in a bunch of uh, I wouldn't say that there's no occasion for, the so-called $5 words, whatever they call them. I'm not sure that's the right expression, but um, I wouldn't say that there's no case for using technical language, no case for using more sophisticated language, for lack of a better description, but language that devotes its attention to truth ought to be plain and unadorned. there is very much such a thing as using technical terms just to make an argument sound legitimate even when it's not. That can be kind of the word salad thing. But even if it's not word salad, you could still do that. Like just kind of use, smart words. I tried to do air quotes without putting down my book. That's why I did that. Smart words to make it seem like you really know what you're talking about when you really don't. You know, politicians again. Politicians and journalists, I have absolutely no respect for. I would say the vast, vast majority. There are a handful of exceptions, but even then, I'm kind of waiting for them to sleep with one eye open if I'm near them. Um, this popular style has nothing to do with truth. Its object is to sway a mass audience, to carry away unpracticed ears by the force of its onslaught. And right now, anybody listening to this and saying, yeah, that's that other political party, not mine. No, it's yours. It's both. They're both terrible at this. I won't say who, but who I voted for in the last presidential election does that. I guess I gave it away because I didn't say did that. It never submits itself to detailed discussion, is just wafted away. Besides, how can a thing? Oh wait, I don't. That's not the next sentence is bad, but that was. I want to jump ahead. There is, moreover, a great deal of futility and emptiness about this style of speaking, which has more noise about it than effectiveness. Again, politicians. It's just more noise than effectiveness. When's the last time a politician actually did anything good? That's kind of off topic, though, I guess. You will do... Okay, skipping ahead again. You will be doing the right thing, therefore, if you do not go to listen to people who are more concerned about the quantity than the quality of what they say. And choose yourself, if you have to speak in the manner of Publius Vinicius. When Asellius was asked how Vinicius spoke, he described it as being at a slow pace. And skipping towards the last sentence. The upshot, then, of what I have to say is this. I am telling you to be a slow-speaking person. So it's about, being thoughtful, not trying to... I'm kind of reminded, actually, of probably a good example of someone that speaks exactly in the way that Seneca is saying not to do it, is Jackie Chiles. If you don't know who Jackie Chiles is, that means you didn't watch Seinfeld, and you should. That's a great show. But like Jackie Chiles is exactly someone who did not speak at a slow pace. The fact that he didn't speak at a slow pace wasn't in itself the problem. The problem was that him speaking quickly was part of how he would overwhelm the audience. I think a mosquito got in my house. Anyway, like he would say, it's lewd, lascivious, salacious, outrageous. You just add on, that's that language is not plain and unadorned. He is just adding adjectives just for the heck of it, just to make it sound more and more impactful, I guess. Now, I don't do a lot of public speaking. I don't count this as public speaking exactly. I mean, it kind of is, I guess, but it's not at all the same thing. But I do think that as an audience, we need to kind of recognize, first of all, journalists and politicians and 99.999% of political commentators, that's what they do. What they say is amounts to nothing. It's darkens counsel by words without knowledge. It's pointless talk. And I think it's important to recognize that.